do you want to talk a little bit about your sort of background and what you've done? I mean, it can be in-depth or brief.
Yep.
And then I guess I'm really excited to talk about your business journey, because that's what we talk a lot about: family and faith and business. I guess is sort of really quite
kind of the three things that we
because we're in it,
get lost in it. Yeah, that's right. We're right in there
for sure. So I think
Definitely.
that what did you do when you graduated high school? You grew up here in Rocky, I think.
Yep.
Yeah,
I did.
and I'm not going to say your story. You can
Okay,
say
well,
it.
you probably know a little bit of it. I think we've had interactions in the past, probably over the last, 15 years?
Oh, how long have we known each
At
other?
least 15, 17
for
years,
sure.
probably.
Yeah, long time.
Yeah, I don't know. When did you graduate in high school?
2011.
2011, okay. I think it was after you graduated, so yeah.
Yep.
Say 10, 11 years then, probably. Very good.
So, went to Heights
So
College?
okay, I went to Heights College.
Yes, great.
I
Great
did.
school.
It was a great school. I enjoyed it. Great friends there. Nice small school at the time, which was handy, enjoyable. Graduated there in 2005. Had a bit of a life plan already established. So kind of loved investments, loved managing money, or the idea of managing money maybe. Maybe the better way to put it. Investments. And so had a plan to kind of get into the accounting side of things to really understand, how money works in this world. And so I'll never be cheated, basically.
Ooh, okay.
Establish the platform that I know where I stand. So if I ever went into investments or into business, I'm not going to be kerfuddled by someone that's trying to talk around me or that type of thing. So wanted to get that learning and base platform to launch then from that platform. So
did you graduate high school with like 10 grand in your bank account? Like I feel like I worked a part-time job in high school and I spent everything that I earned.
Yep.
I didn't save. But then like one of my mates, he graduated with like 12 grand in his account. And I was like, damn, like that's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome.
So I feel like if you were into money management, maybe you were one of those people.
I was.
Or you just learned how to spend it as well.
I learned how to spend it as well. I've been interested in keeping. At that age, I was like to be social, and so having a phone and spending money on credit, spending money on going out to say Macca's, Hungry Jack's, or whatever after youth on a Saturday night. Those types of things took up most of my money because at the time I think I was only earning $40 a week, $45 a week. So to save 10 grand would have taken me a long time. Yeah, so I wasn't really putting any efforts into saving at that time as such. But the next year, my first year out of school, I had a gap year and worked as a courier driver. So that was good. My dad was a courier driver, so I jumped in, got a spot at Australian Air Express, which is like Qantas Freight, basically. I used to drive down the beach every morning. Cool. So that's where I learned all the streets in Yeppoon, basically. So I used to
come in handy now.
Yeah, well, it does. So from Roslyn Bay all the way up to the Ridges kind of areas where I kind of...
Farnborough.
Well, no.
Bit
It's
further.
Farnborough. Yeah, Uzaki's.
Okay, yeah.
Ridges. Yeah.
That's in Farnborough.
Yeah, that's right. It is Farnborough.
Yeah.
And then out to Adelaide Park Road, out to St. Brendan's. That was kind of my furthest west. So I kind of like learnt a lot of the areas out there and that type of thing. I do need a refresh, but I used to live in the Refidex, basically, of the local directories, the phone book.
So this would have been like the iPhone came out 2008. So this is pre-Google Maps having on your phone.
It's 2006.
Yeah, so this is pre-iPhone.
I used to plan my run with a phone book in hand if I didn't know the street. So I knew all the main streets and everything. I just didn't know, let's say, if it was something Pacific Heights, like an odd street in Pacific Heights, I mightn't have remembered that. So it would be just like laying out my run associated with that, and then you go and deliver, basically, and work through the run. So I usually worked into Yeppoon first, push out to Ridges, come back in, and then then push back out to Roslyn Bay, and then come back in and do the shopping centre last. So I got to the shopping centre usually about 11:30 or so, and then I grab Wendy's and go home.
More saving money.
Bit of fun. Yeah, all about saving money. But in that time, my goal was to pay off a car.
Cool.
So I wanted a Suzuki Sierra. So one came available in June that year. So I got my parents to put up the $5,000 to do it, and I paid them back in 6 months. So by the end of the year, I owned a car, ready to go to uni.
Yep.
Yeah, so I paid $200 a week. I was only earning about $325 to $350 a week.
Wow.
So I happy to live with not that much really.
Cool.
And obviously uni is another element of that where you're learning to budget and give a bit of reason or value, like what's the reason I want to put money away and that type of thing. So
I have this joke that the Yellow Pages becomes less and less valuable every year because it's getting smaller.
Yep.
And I use it to start the fireplace in winter.
Yep.
So there's less and less paper. It's
That's
less
it.
and less
That's right. Useful.
useful.
It's true. It's true. It's at least halved.
Yeah, it's
Since
very
I've seen 'em.
fascinating.
Yeah.
We can talk about that when it comes to,
That's the thing.
you know, business. But
they seem to be getting quite a big Yellow Pages following online though.
yeah, same with local
It
search.
got pretty good. Yeah.
Same with local search. A lot of
SEO
people,
sort of stuff,
they push
so.
all the digital marketing stuff. Yeah. With
Yeah.
That, so
And they're even selling it now to do it for businesses and stuff.
yeah, they're pushing it big time.
Yeah. So
Very cool. And so then what made you decide to study?
what made me? Well, that was always my plan.
Yeah.
So
Gap year was
grade
your plan.
7, gap year was a plan, and then move straight into accounting, do a 3-year degree, get out, start earning money or moving into business, whatever. Yeah, that was the plan. And then, so I got through. I started a job as an accountant, a junior accountant at the end of my second year, and then did that part time all through the last year of uni, and stayed there for another 9 months after graduation, till like July, August the next year. And then kind of getting sick of doing tax returns and that type of thing. It's very mundane. I'm a bit more of a people person than a number crunching guy.
So more of a people person than most accountants.
Yes, correct. I was an odd fit.
Yeah.
I had one just out here actually, out in front of the refectory. One of the one of the senior leaders in the IT department, Peter Van Heck. He can I drop names here?
If you like to, yeah.
Doesn't matter.
If it's
Anyways,
good or bad.
he's a relation, so but he introduced me to a teacher here, and he said, "Oh, guess what? This guy's studying." So this is my first year in school. I had big, crazy blonde hair, surfer looking like, and they're like, "Oh, probably engineering or something like that." He's like, "No, he's studying accountancy." He's like, so it's a bit of an odd fit in the accounting space, I guess, but there was a reason for that. Yeah.
And when you worked in IT for a while, so how did that fit in as well?
Well, it's I've had an interesting, let's say, career. So basically, when I left the accounting firm, I wanted to do a booking business.
Yeah.
Learned the hard truth about advertising marketing, that you need to do it to actually get clients. So I had a few clients that give me a few, basically getting $100 to $200 a week off a couple of clients and doing a few different things, but wasn't pushing to get any, kind of further business or door knocking or anything. And so I ended up, most of that time, actually share traded. That's what I did.
You were waiting for the phone to ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait for the phone to ring, but I was just trading shares basically. So I did up to 4 to 6 hours a day where I'd just be like reading stuff on businesses and that type of thing. Just looking at the markets and that type of thing. So 6 months ahead, go ahead 6 months or whatever. Still living at home at this stage, so it's nice and easy. Got offered a job by an old friend who had an online company, which had been growing, as just about hit $2 million turnover. And they were looking to move their accounting package from MIOB to another package which could link into the back end of his website and the way it was run. So he wanted to have someone there that could help map and make sure the IT people that are putting it all together are doing their job correctly. So I went and worked for him for 3 months, contracting under the business, and helped establish processes for the new accounting software and that type of things, just so that they could then take it forward once I left. So that was a 3-4 month contract in Brizzy. And then I came back to Rocky. That was really good in my life, actually, to kind of break the rut that sometimes you get in life. And I think the bubble kind of burst that first year out of school, second year out of school, where do you go? Like, I had everything planned up to the end of uni, 2009, get out, and I'm like, what the heck do I do?
Yeah.
Well, I got a degree, but what does that mean? Like, what am I going to get into? And so, yeah, that was an interesting time.
So, especially when you grow up in a town as well. You grow up in, you've been here your whole life, never lived anywhere.
Sure.
It gives you that little bit of...
Yeah, it just gives you a bit of variety and that type of thing. And I was, probably should have done more exploring. Like a lot of people, like all my cousins who are, CEOs of fintech companies in Rizzy, or what's the name? Partner in a major law firm managing negotiations between like IPO listed stocks and stuff, with mergers and acquisitions, that type of thing. I'll go down and see them and they're like, what are you doing in Rocky? Like, you fit the mould of like someone in the metro. So yeah, that was interesting kind of conversations that I had, like just obviously just my thinking patterns and the way I act and converse and stuff. So I probably could have followed something a lot down there and gone further and been earning $250,000 a year or whatever, quite comfortably at this age.
Why did you stay?
For me, there's probably always a tug of, I think I had a role to play in the church. And I didn't know what that is or what that fit was, but there was always an attachment there to God and where I needed to function, I think. And I think it's coming to fruition now where I sit on the board of the school and the church as well. So I guess I take it in my stride because I feel like God's just been prepping me for this, I guess. But it's a lot of responsibility you take on, and sometimes you don't think about that. But yeah, it's just been something that God's opened doors, and I've always just followed that open door rather than chase my own things, I guess. Yeah. So anyways, I came back from Brizzy, started work at Appleton as an assistant manager, started looking at accounting sort of stuff for the business, but also learning like sales, how to book in everything, how to run kind of a store and that type of thing. The owner owned 7 of the Appleton stores at the time, so I was kind of started learning all that side of things. So I was a mechanic industry, so getting I got a broad range of exposure to different things. Met quite a few interesting and wonderful people in that space. Really good exposure to a lot of different walks of life as well, I guess, which was good for me. Like coming from a Christian background, like sometimes we can get a bit insulated. So I think that having that exposure is a good thing to kind of grow and mature, and then see the world as all God's earth, not just this little bit that we've grown up in and know, like God and the Holy Spirit's working everywhere in life, and it's not us that's doing it. It's like we just need to tap into it or explain what that is that's moving in their lives, to people as we introduce God and Jesus to people. So yeah, it's interesting.
Very interesting.
So anyway,
would have been.
Yeah, so it was pretty good. But after the first year, one of the finance people left. So I took on all the accounts payable. I took on, they also had a master franchise for a different company as well, the Queensland thing. So I took on all the accounting side of that, and then took on accounts payable and wages and stuff because the person left, and then another firm's person left. So I ended up taking on used to run the finances for the whole organisation.
CFO.
Yeah, basically. How's that? So I just did all that. I just said to myself, financial controller, financial manager, whatever you want to call me.
CFO.
The person.
Go with CFO.
Okay, no worries. I was the person that did the money stuff. I didn't get in the money, but I tracked the money and did it. So had some good experiences of that, like helped build a system to like translate all the data from, so they run off 5 separate POS systems. I built a system to translate all that into an accounting package so that it was clean data for the accountants every year. Which was pretty good, bit of a learning experience, but it was just so messy in those POS systems, and it had a general ledger, but it didn't balance, like the trial balance sheet didn't balance. So it wasn't actually a trial balance, it was just a trial.
Not what it's supposed to be. Yeah.
Not what it's supposed to be, yeah. So there's a lot of glitches. It was an old DOS-based system. So, it was fun.
And so you worked in IT after that at the local university, but obviously you had a huge interest in, you're a bit of a nerd, just in terms of like, that accounting background.
That, yeah.
If I was being critical, I would say
well, let's say grade 12, I had a grade 1, I'd come up and say, you're the coolest nerd. And I was like, I'm not even a nerd. Like,
we call it a backhanded compliment.
That's exactly right. I thought it was very...
You're the coolest nerd.
Because I was like, what is this? I'm like, I didn't even class myself as a nerd. But apparently I am.
That's so funny. Oh, that's awesome.
That stuck with me, that one.
But that's a huge asset, obviously, and it helped you in those different roles, like having a huge knowledge of tech and then being able to build whole systems around your financial knowledge as well.
Yeah.
That's
it
really
can help,
cool.
that type of thing, yeah. So, yeah, it's been interesting growth. So I've seen God move and like take me into bigger budgets and stuff as well. So like went from like 2 million with that, what's the name, the online business, to 4.5 million with the ultrasounds, and then 6.5 at the uni when I started. And then when I left, it was actually at 13.5. So that was my budget that I managed every year. So yeah, it's good and growing. Like, I'm not afraid of a few zeros, and that's all it basically ends up being, you know.
It's good.
It's not that bad. So maybe just getting established to understand money, and that it's not all, it's not all about accumulating all this money. Like, it ends up just being zeros, and that's all it is.
Sometimes, I run a relatively small business.
Yep.
I mean, small business
Me
in
too,
Queensland is...
Oh, bro.
It's under 50 million.
Like
yeah,
it's
maybe it's
ridiculous.
10. I thought it was 50, but
it's probably,
I think it's 10, and it's like, so a lot of people are in the small business thing. So I ring a mate of mine who also runs a small business, turning over a measly 5 million a year.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm having this problem, and like, do you still thinking like I'm just going to outgrow it eventually, or it's just teething problems? And He's like, mate, face that same issue every single day. Like, it's just not saying you can't grow through certain problems and solve them and things like that, but it's you think in your head that just turning like more revenue means like less problems somehow, like less issues, but it's just the same or different. Like,
yeah, for sure.
It's just, Jay-Z had it right. More money, more problems.
I think it's right.
It's
well, I think in the Bible it talks about that. That's the cares of life, really, the thorns that come eat away the seed. Like, so easy to get distracted by the material things, and that wealth proponent, like, you usually end up having to manage that instead of spending your time with God or with people or being generous. You got to get to the stage where you can hand over that money responsibility to a degree. You can't just take your finger off it, but you need to, so you can take it away from the day-to-day operations. That's my ideal. That's where I want to get to.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think that's a better space to be.
Do you see money management as more of like the parable of the talents, or do you have like another for your life? Do you feel like there's
the parable
another?
of talents is an interesting one to talk about.
That is a very interesting one to talk about.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure if there was another example of how you fit money into your sort of, I guess, what we're meant to do with it type of thing.
Yeah. Well, no, I think there's fields as well. So I think, because the talents one's quite interesting because they all went away and doubled their money except for the one that hit it. Like, they didn't talk about how they doubled their money or what it looks like. So does that mean that everyone's just expected to double their money or what they've been given? Don't know.
You're the theologian.
I'm trying to ask the question.
You tell me.
Well, this is supposed to be a discussion.
I get to ask the questions.
You get to ask the questions. Oh, okay. I didn't realise that.
No. I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about that one as well in terms of, obviously there's other scriptures that say, like, to he who is, what is it? Given much will be given more. Or more will be given, and then he who has little that little will be taken away, and it's very obviously there's the context.
But that's at the end of the talents. Obviously the person that I don't have much, so I won't do anything. That's the throwaway attitude, or the motivation's not there.
And is it more?
But the guy that managed his stuff well and stewarded it like we're called to do.
I think if you think about it more broadly, it means something like everyone has something.
Yes, that's true.
Because we look at people who are, let's say, you and I look at people who are hyper successful or have a really successful, like even with their faith or they're in ministry or they're doing whatever, doing amazing things with their lives, and people look up to them. Everyone will have someone different they look up to, but I think people can get into the trap that they think that they don't have anything to offer. So it's a bit of a mindset. No, I've got all these problems. I haven't done anything great with my life. I'm a failure, whatever. And I think so that to me says that God gives everyone something.
Yes, for sure, definitely.
But also God gives some people more than others.
Correct.
Because he knows what we can
handle and
what we can handle, what we can't. And so, that to me is like from a more broad...
I agree with that.
Then you can get into the nuances of like, is it the doubling the important thing? Is it not? Like whatever that is. But
whatever.
To me,
I don't know.
Everyone's given something, and then we need to do something with our something.
We do. We do. I agree. And I think one of the things is like when you talk about psychology or people moving into upper management to understand people more, to understand personalities, understand themselves more, like one of the real priorities that people talk about is learning yourself. Like, do you know yourself well enough? Because the more you know yourself, the more you can act or mitigate potential lacks or weaknesses, build on your strengths and that type of thing. But knowing yourself is also knowing your capabilities. And something that one of my pastors said recently was that we need to understand what we've been given. If you don't understand what you've been given, you don't know what you need to do. And so if we just walk along always, bombarded by social media and life just hitting us and going, I don't have anything, or, well, no, understand yourself, understand what you got, what your strengths are, and walk in that, because God's given you something to walk in and to walk out, and a purpose to run. It's for us to walk that out and then to find it. And if we're not willing to understand who we are and what our, if you don't understand that you've got one talent, you're not going to do anything. Like you said, if you don't know you've been given anything, then you can't do anything.
Yeah, or I guess we're sold through great marketing material, even by this own university, that we can be what we want to be.
Well, that's true. Yep.
Which in theory is correct, but I think it's this weird... I've talked about this before, where it was like, you could... Are
you getting to the point where can anybody be anything?
Yeah, that type of thing. Like you could decide today...
We've all got an IQ.
There's a limit to that, but what if you decided you wanted to be in the NBA? This is like the easy example, right? Yeah. Like,
what's the point of doing an MBA?
Well, you've got those... I feel like we often ask the wrong questions. Like, could you... I mean, I can do what I want and I can do anything, and I've got all these self-belief kind of mantras you can pump out, but it's like, but you're already this age and you've got competing against people who have been doing that thing since this age. So they've got 10 or 15 or 20 years on you. So they've put in, that 10,000 hours type thing, right? To become a professional. And so they reckon that Roger Federer playing tennis already had his 10,000 hours at like the age 11 years old. Yeah. So then from there, he's building on top of that. Yeah. So he's going to be miles ahead of other people. So
for sure.
We can, I don't know, you can get these really fanciful kind of goals where you're like, I can be what I want to be. I can do anything. And it's kind of where we actually...
You got to do the time, innit?
But also we're hamstrung by the amount of choice that we have. Like, you could move to Italy or Dubai or America, and we can do all these things and be any... But it's... Yeah. But then most people probably end up living a subpar life because...
Yeah. They're chasing something.
They end up chasing the wrong things, or we get overwhelmed by the choice, so you choose nothing, or it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
When if you went, which sounds really boring and hopefully not offensive to anyone, but you could start a bakery and be the best baker.
That's right. But you can get renowned and success from that as well.
But like we don't that's not glamorized on the social media or in whatever. So we don't choose those things because why would I do that? That's when that's probably like actually really fulfilling.
Yeah.
And I was talking to someone this morning who's quit social media. They're off Instagram, Facebook, everything.
Yeah.
And he said, I used to really feel like I was failing. This guy's pretty successful.
Yeah.
He's got more money in the bank than you and I combined.
Yeah.
Really successful young guy, really great young guy.
Yeah.
And he said, I was always looking at, reading wealth books and all this other stuff, and I just felt like I was failing.
Yeah.
And when I quit all that stuff, I just realized that it's actually, I'm doing okay. And it was like, he was actually in touch with reality.
Yeah.
It wasn't
just readjusting to,
Now we can consume media and get inspired and work hard and go further and all that stuff. But what are we actually doing?
Well, I think it comes back to like, when you have in money, setting a goal is a key thing, because if you've got nothing to move towards, there's no reason for making a hard choice. This is like in any area of life. You would be well aware of this principle. If in our lives we don't have a purpose or a reason on where we're going, or a reason that we've been put on this earth, we're going to be chasing every other whim, And I think it's up to us, like in our lives, to actually work towards understanding what God has for us. And, you know, wisdom really begins with the fear of the Lord, which is to shun evil. That's the core thought of fear of the Lord. Shun evil. And like, okay, well, if I start walking in this, and then God might give me more, you know, like if I start with the small principle, like the small things in life, then he's going to give me purpose and bring about the right things. Like I've seen, we haven't even got through my career yet, but anyways, like even recently I've like cried out to God a little bit just around, Lord, I'm going to need some big wins. Like if this is a way that's starting to open up, then God, I'm going to need some big wins to move forward or whatever. And in the last week, he's connected me with 3 people that are just potentially opening those doors to build to the next layer of, you know, the next stage of the agency that I have, the real estate agency. So, which is just crazy. Like, you get to a point where you're like, God, I don't know what's going on. This is just seeming like it's coming to a dead end, or it's like it's slower than it needs to be, or, you know, you're like, what is going on, God? Like, what is happening, and where can I walk, and what's the next avenue? But I think in his timing, he brings it about. And in that timing, I'm seeing that if I grew faster as an agency, I think that I may fall over quicker, you know, or things about, oh, it's what I did that got me there so quick, you know, and pride would come in thing. But in God's timing, it works. You slowly grow, and then you see God come through, and you see, you know, you build trust in that, your faith grows, and you start moving in that. And at the end of the day, like in Ecclesiastes, it talks about, it says, don't give me too much, that I'd forget you, God, but don't give me too little, that I'd reject your ways and sin against you. So for him, in the, you know, in his dilemma of what life is and how sometimes a wicked will prosper, or sometimes the righteous doesn't prosper, and even though they're doing the right thing, like all the weird things of life that don't happen the way Proverbs seems to outline it to happen, he comes back to that balance in life, and where is our expectations, and where do we sit, and why do we want to have overly too much money? Like, what is the point of it? What is the value of having that too much money? If you've got no purpose for it, I don't think God will give it to us. But if I want to fund it, if I've started up a camp or something that I want to put I need $15,000 to make it work every year for the, you know, the teens of this or the youth of this town, city. Maybe he'll just open doors for the funds, you know, because there's a purpose for it. But until you start getting that purpose and aligning with him, I think, not that he doesn't allow fruitfulness or prosperity, but I think sometimes that exponential growth or that outflow doesn't always come. But I don't know.
How does that work for people who don't have any faith at all?
I don't know. It's a great question, Levi. When you say don't have any faith, what do you mean?
As in they are...
people that do not believe in God at the moment.
Do not believe in God.
At the moment.
And they're very successful. Yeah.
Well, that's the dilemma that Ecclesiastes talks about. Ecclesiastes talks about the dilemma. Why are the wicked prospering? This righteous man is here doing everything, being honest. And this other dude that lies through his teeth to every person he can sell something to. And he's the one prospering. Like, what is going on, God? But you can come back to old principles in the Bible, like after the flood, where God promises to Noah that he'll never flood the earth again to destroy the earth. But he also declares a blessing where there will be seasons, there will be sowing, there will be harvest. The sun will continue to come up every day. There will be day and night. There will be, you know, he establishes this establishment of world order, right? And that's going to happen no matter what. So part of wisdom is actually learning how the world works and then working within those bounds. They mightn't be working in all parts of wisdom. For example, those people that are like super successful, not many of them actually have good marriages or good family relationships, because all their focus is on having wisdom in money management or building businesses or building up people around them. But not wisdom in
even
family.
People who are Christians or do that.
Yes, correct. That's
And
right.
have those problems. And people have those problems without money.
That's exactly right.
So
That's right. And there's this balance in life that's such a challenge to walk in. And I think that's part of the Christian life. Walking down the narrow road.
I've been thinking a lot about individualism and how there's a really great pastor out of Melbourne, Mark Sayers, who sort of did a 2-part series on this. And he, what we're kind of talking about is how, as a society, why do we've become obsessed with kind of being hyper successful, I guess. So for example, if you like knitting as a hobby, then there's this like pressure to like turn your knitting into like a side
and
hustle.
Like earn money. Yeah, for sure.
And the whole thing is, get out of the system, work for yourself, quit your job, start a business. That's the whole, that's the goal of life right now for people, right? It's this sort of weird portrayal of this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I guess if you look historically, people just, like my mate who quit social media and works a great job and has a great family and lives a great life. And he works hard and he loves the Lord and he provides for his family. Why is him being, he'll be a millionaire when he retires probably, but what more does he need?
That's right.
What social pressure are we taking on ourselves by having to be hyper successful at everything that we do? I'm not, obviously any business, I think about this all the time, and it's a business that isn't growing is shrinking.
Yes.
So your market, hopefully your market is growing, right?
Yes,
like whatever your thing is, because there's more people,
share or
there's more people moving to, at least in our area, there's there's growth percent on percent every year. So already the market is growing, and so if your business isn't growing with that market, your market share is decreasing, your business is shrinking. One of the Grant Cardone says if you're either contracting or expanding, there's no in between. That's it. It's like breathing. It's like
for sure.
It's in or out. That's it. So I know that we have to always be, going into new seasons and pivoting and doing these other things. But am I trying to make $1 million turnover, or am I trying to do 10, or am I trying to be a billionaire? Like what? Yeah. And then you look at,
that's for every person to decide.
I guess reverse engineering. Let's reverse engineer the question. Jordan Peterson's really good at this. He said, think about, and you'll fantasize about something, right? Like if you ask, especially young people, you may or may not have had some.
I'm still young, am I?
Yeah. Or when you were young.
Shoot that down.
You would have had some really far-fetched idea of I want to be that, some dream about being some famous singer. You're in bands and stuff, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you want to be some famous singer. You want to be some really successful this or that. And when surveyed, young people today, it may still not be true. Yeah. They wanted to be a YouTuber. What? That was most young people under the age of 20. This was just a few years ago. So they wanted to be an influencer or YouTuber, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So
wow, that's phenomenal.
Let's think about that. So how do you become a YouTuber or influencer?
Well, you have to get liked.
Yeah, well, what you have to do is there's ways to do it authentically, but there's also ways to do it where you sell your soul. And guys, there's people who do it really well. And what do? They don't do much with their life. They just focus 100% on doing that thing every single day. And some of them make it, and a whole bunch of people fail as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And
probably a lot.
What I'm saying is, when you have this really far-fetched dream, and a lot of people talk about, or like I said, am I saying that word? Fantasize, as in, they dream about. Oh, I'd love to do that. I'd love to do that. Yeah. But if you said, okay, well, let's take that. You want to own your own business, or you want to be a CEO of a big,
firm or whatever,
Fortune 500 company or something. Yeah. So what have you got to do to get there? Oh, you've got to study this degree, and you've got to do 20 years working in this type of industry and dun. Oh, well, I don't really want to go to uni. So, well, it's hang on. You're dreaming about something.
Yeah, and you're not willing to do
the work. You're not even willing to do the work to get there.
That's right.
What a waste of time.
Yeah.
So that's what I was trying to say from the start of this about goals and, I want to join the NBA and stuff. Are we dreaming about the wrong things? Are our goals... Not that they're too big, but it's are we just kind of getting this a bit mixed up, where we're kind of thinking about we can be anything and move anywhere and do anything, but is that actually going to be good for our soul?
Yeah. Yes and no.
Like move to Brisbane or a big capital city like some of your friends, and people do that and they're happy and they're successful and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But there's something to, historically, growing up in a town, investing your life there, marrying someone from that town, raising a family in that town, and contributing in a positive sense to your community and to your environment.
Yeah. Sure.
People are going to move to capital cities. People are going to marry people from other places. Well, I'm not saying you can't do that. It's just what I'm trying to portray as a traditional idea of, I guess, life.
Living life.
And how historically people, when people did that, we didn't have sky-high rates of suicide and depression. Mm. So something's happened
for sure
in people having the ability to do whatever they want, be whatever they want. Yeah. And I've asked people on this. I said, why do we have within women even they're the most free that they've ever been? They can actually drive, they can actually vote, they can actually do work, and they're free. They've got body autonomy. They can do whatever they want. Yeah. Yet depression and anxiety rates are higher than they've ever been. Yeah. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Not particularly.
Do you have the answer?
I'm not going to answer the...
Well,
I'm not going to answer because...
It's because we're so obsessed and focused on ourselves.
That's part of the issue.
And our happiness. It's part of the issue. And actually our pleasure...
they don't understand what happiness is part of the issue. Because to a degree, the problem is happiness. Because happiness...
Well, what is happiness?
Happiness is a temporary thing. Mm. It's a temporary feeling that, oh, look, I just bought the new house that I always wanted. Woohoo! A month later, you're like, I got this debt stuff, man. I've got to keep paying this debt.
But that's the problem with goals as well. Like goals, I'm not saying financial goals are slightly different, but it's this. David Goggins talks about this.
Yeah, that's right.
You train for this race. I'm going to run a half marathon.
Yeah.
And you have this I'm going to run.
Okay, I'm going to do it in 40 minutes or whatever it is.
And then that'd be world breaking. Yeah, that'd be like a world record. That'd be like a world record. But anyway.
Yeah, okay. What is half marathon
21 kilometers.
Yeah. What does it run in?
I mean, look, if you're going to do 4-minute kilometers around that, sort of would be a really pretty competitive time for 21 kilometers. Okay. The guy who holds the world record for the marathon, I think, runs around that for a marathon.
Okay.
So that's 21 kilometers by 4 minutes. 84 minutes. So an hour 20.
Yeah. Okay. Hour and a half. I was way off.
So
I have no idea. Sorry, obviously, I haven't studied marathon at all. No worries at all. Educate
goals. So we achieve
fleeting,
it. You achieve it, and then it's like, cool. Now what? What we kind of have to get obsessed with, not in the cliche way, but in becoming the best version of ourselves. In that, not in the cliche way. In that, tomorrow, we want to be stronger, and better, and wiser, and more full of faith than we were today.
Question. Here's an interesting question to continue the talk. It's along the same lines. In one of the podcasts I was listening to recently, it talks about how majority of the time of a human is thinking on the future, what we need to do tomorrow, what our hopes are, what our dreams are, or reflecting on the past and deliberating or wishing we had done something previously or whatever. But we're not thinking on the present. Are we living in today? I want to counter that. We should always be looking to improve ourselves, for sure. But we need to be, each day, we just need to thank you, Lord, that I've woken up again today. Let's start the day afresh. What can I do for you? Let's walk in the Spirit and go from
To me, it is the same thing because because today, if you get, tomorrow morning, if you get up early and go for a run and spend time reading the Bible, and spend time with your family or with your kids, and go to work and do a really good job and work your hardest and eat food that isn't going to kill you, then that's a good day.
Yeah.
And that is you doing some hard things and prioritizing others and
that's right.
So that to me is
Is it our sense of...
That to me is becoming a better version of yourself in terms of it's doing...
Well, it's a well-rounded life.
Things you should be doing.
I think we should be well-rounded life.
Things that we don't typically do. I saw a stat this week. It was like if for every 1,000 steps over 4,000 steps a day, your chances of dying of a heart attack go down by 15% or something like that. It was like from a faith perspective, the amount of people not reading the Bible every day, and the number of Christians is astronomically high. Yep. The number of people in Australia who are including me probably right now, who have Christian. Excess weight on their bodies that we shouldn't have and carry.
Me.
No, then is astronomically high.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is we sit here, like you said, and you get stressed or anxious about some other problem for tomorrow.
Yeah.
And to me, the real problems of today, are treating my body right.
Yeah.
Making sure that I'm physically and mentally and spiritually healthy.
Yeah.
And that I'm doing everything that I'm called to do. The Bible talks a lot about calling, doesn't have much to say about vocation.
Yeah.
We get obsessed with vocation. That's High school. What are you going to be when you grow up? What are you going to be? What are you going to be?
Right.
To me, it doesn't matter.
That's right.
As long as you love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and spirit.
Yep.
And you provide for your family.
That's
it. I don't care if you're driving a rubbish truck or CEO of a company. Do you know what I mean? It's
sure.
It's so
That's true.
We're getting obsessed with the wrong things.
With the wrong things. That's the dreams. I see where you're going with.
So that's
we're dreaming about the wrong thing.
That's what I'm trying to unpack around. Like even focusing on the wrong things. Where one of my favorite things I heard recently was that if you were 50 and you had amassed all the wealth in the world, but you could give it all away and be 30 again, would you?
That's a good question.
Most people, the answer would probably be yes.
Yes.
Which shows that time is more valuable than money.
Yes, for sure. I don't know. There's a part of me that goes, do I want to go back to starting to rear kids?
Starting to what?
To raise kids.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean,
back to...
You're elaborating a bit on that. You're elaborating too. I didn't say your kids are 20 years younger as well, but...
Well, yeah. I was like, if I went back to 30, like my life when I was 30, just the busyness of it and that type of thing, you're like, look, I've done my hard yards. Like, I'm still in my 30s, so I'm still going through this. But when I'm 50, I'm like, no, I'm glad I've passed it on. Now I'm going to enjoy my grandkids.
That's fair enough. What I'm trying to say is that
but it's a balanced view.
Is the idea that time is more valuable than money. So
I have no issue with the time
wind forward
and
go to 80. You're 80 and you've amassed all the wealth in the world.
Yeah.
But the way to get back to 60 is that's all people want when they get older is they just want more time. That's typically what.
That's typically.
Now, some people are super happy to go to glory, right? You know,
let's say with a natural. Yeah. Well, that's the natural instinct. Is that because they've got too many regrets?
I don't know.
And never lived their life to the full?
I don't know.
If you've got someone who's lived their life to the full with God every day, like you say, where do you think they would stand? Like, where did Paul stand?
Are you afraid of death?
Me? I think there's an element still, but I think I'm getting closer to not being bothered.
Because I think that's what...
That's a concern. That's a big fear that everyone has, because what does that mean?
If you don't have faith, then there's if you don't believe in any form of afterlife, let's say, then all we have now is all there is.
Yes, correct.
So you've got to live it to the fullest.
That's right.
I heard a sad story yesterday of two people who, I won't say the industry or whatever like that, two people who were working in the same industry, in the same place, in the same town, worked their whole careers in this job and retired. You know, they were on some good money. So they amassed some great wealth. Had the caravan, hitched up to the car, ready to go. Both these guys, different families, whatever, same job. Within a year of retiring,
both died.
Got cancer and died. Both of them. And it was so sad
because
because
the industry that I'm in, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay, that's good.
It's not a real estate agent.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Now there is a weird. Okay, well, what job were they doing? Were they affected by?
Sure.
That's fair enough. But what I'm trying to focus on is the sad fact that most people work most of their life for this
idea of retirement,
which we've
ingrained.
It's
in us.
changed a lot, since going from the pension to superannuation. That's what people are living for. People are kind of living for that retirement.
Yeah.
And I think young people...
But I don't think it'll change really for another 10, 20, 30 years
young
when
people,
the superannuation...
in some way, young people today are more... Cause they're kind of flipping that on their head. They're, traveling Australia in a van, being homeless until they're 30 or 40 or who knows, and not having kids. And like, there's that is very
definitely
prolific.
But is that more like selfishness?
It's a different type of selfishness because I think retirement from a health perspective seems to be one of the worst things that people can do because they stop moving.
Yep. Yeah,
Every day they're getting up, going to work. They've got purpose.
Yeah, that's right.
They've got a community.
I agree, yeah.
There's a TV show which I'm yet to watch on Netflix, but it's called, I'll have to look up the name. It's of all these people who live over 100.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and they've done this series on them, and there's like 5 key areas of the world where statistically, there's this guy there like rounding up horses.
Yeah, okay.
He's like riding around on horseback, like over 100 years old.
Yeah.
This guy, and so they looked at these key, diet had something to do with it, but it was like physical activity, it was purpose.
Yep.
And family and community.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
so when you lose some of those things, you don't actually have a reason to live anymore.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I was just sort of going from like this idea of we live our whole lives working for something to attain something, and then
it's not even good for us.
Yeah, maybe. I'm so energetic right now that I don't see myself ever retiring in the sense of that word.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it.
The way we perceive retirement.
The way that retirement is perceived, in that you get to just do what, like, and this is almost like biblical as well in terms of, filling your barns.
Yeah.
And then resting on your laurels.
Yep.
I'm trying to remember what the outcome of that scripture was, but...
Well, it's interesting. There's one scripture that talks about Jesus was talking to a rich young guy. Mm-hmm. So... getting a cramp in my hamstring.
Oh, good.
From touch football last night.
Did you win?
Yes. Yeah, both games we won.
Good.
It was good.
Good.
Makes it worthwhile night. That's right.
Worth the injury.
Yeah, sore knees and things. Anyways, so there's a rich young fool he talked to, and he gave him an example of this old man that had great wealth, and his harvest was so great this year. He's like, there's not enough room in my barns to fill them up. And so he goes, let's build bigger barns.
That's the one.
Let's build bigger barns. Let's fill these up, and then I won't have to live. I won't have to do anything for the next 2-3 years. Like, it won't matter if I have good harvest or not. It won't matter. But then Jesus says, he does that, but does he know that night he's going to die? Yeah. Like, are we always looking to store up all this wealth, which is then just going to be enjoyed by the next generation anyway? So I've been challenging my thinking around generosity recently. I was listening to a Bible Project podcast called God and Money, and it talked about how people basically had gone through the Harvard Business School, and then they'd come out, they were all Christians, and how they believe they should walk in relationship to their money, basically, and what they were doing. They were all in fairly high-paying jobs and that type of thing, right? But one guy made this statement when they were doing interviews, said, the challenge for me is not how much I should give God. The challenge for me is how much I should keep for myself. That's the question to ask. So not, God, should I be giving you 10%? Or should I be giving you 5%? Should I be giving you 15%? Maybe if I do calculations on my tithes and offerings that, based on the full tithe, which is like three tithes that the Jewish people used to give, is 23%. That's what you should give to the church, or to give to orphans and the needy, and then to the temple or the church, and then to others, right? And for yourself, to build the wealth of your family, But anyways, it's not about how much we should be giving. I think we should be flipping that and saying, well, how much do I need to keep? God, what is a reasonable portion for me to sustain my family and retire well, but not be rushing to retirement? I'm not rushing to retire at 40 and then do nothing. I'm looking to retire at 70, so I'm just going to put a modest family away. I'm going to have a reasonable life for us so that we can be generous with everything else. So then you've got potentially phenomenal wealth. And they were talking to one guy who, they were really astounded by this guy because he was living just like that. He was living, okay, I'm just going to put away my 10% or just an amount so that I can retire with a reasonable amount of money to sustain me in retirement, living modestly, like living well with the family, and then everything else he gives away. And every year he tries not to grow in net wealth. He tries not to grow his net worth. He does actions to reduce his net worth if needed. So he's trying to sustain a balanced life for himself and for, because we still need to provide for our families. We need that God said that's a wise man does that. So we need to do that. But do we need to amass wealth and amass assets and amass things for the family for it just to go missing at the end? So, and they said he was crazy because they thought it was crazy because in 3 months he could have enough to retire. Like the amount that he'd set to retire on, he could have it in 3 months. And he's just floating along, had a high-paying job, but he was just there to be philanthropic, to pass on his wealth, to donate to the needy, to the causes in life, to be generous. And that's, God asks us to be generous, to provide for the needy, for the orphan, So I've been challenged around what's my perspective on money is just looking to, I want to make sure that I have $3 million in the bank when I retire and that sort of stuff. Well, what do I actually need? What would I need? And obviously paying my house off is probably a key thing for the family to provide a sustainable future. But then understanding, okay, well, what's my holding costs? Like what do my family actually need to live, survive and thrive? And then, well, what's above that? What can I start? Not just, I don't know if I'm 100% into giving 100% of that to the church, but I think we should be looking for ways to be generous to the community and the people around us, to start building their lives as well, not just trying to hoard it for ourselves and become this selfish person that wants to retire at 40 because that's it. Because I don't think, like you say, if I retire at 40, maybe I'll die at 45 because I've lost purpose. Who knows what would happen? But maybe it's a really selfish way of going about it. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think about that?
That's good. It's good.
It's just changing thinking. That's all.
It's
good.
I think if we want to go there,
I don't know.
what it is if our lives aren't our own.
Yeah.
Anyway, right? As in the call to follow Christ is that we
bear his cross.
We bear his cross and and so is the money. If our lives are our own, why would anything that we own be our own?
Yep.
Isn't it his anyway?
Yeah,
that's I know with like this idea of like giving back but the rest is for me. Yeah, but it's like, well, I think
God distributes everything proportionally, and I think he hopes that we steward it well.
We probably, some of the bad theology that we grew up with thinking is, or it's called, one name for it is like a poverty mindset, is this idea that God wants us to be poor.
Correct.
And to suffer.
Yeah, which is a terrible mindset.
What
kind of God wants you to suffer?
When it says that who feeds the birds of the air, dresses the lilies, how much more does your Father in heaven want good things for you?
That's right.
I think they ran the numbers. You couldn't even crowdfund enough money to and find and grow enough seed every year to feed the birds, all of the birds in the USA or something, right? Like in America, they ran the numbers, and you couldn't even grow enough bird seed.
Yeah,
it's kind of like these natural things just happen. Through the supernatural provision of God in the way that He's designed creation.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're probably just way too small in our thinking.
Yes, definitely.
And so does God want you to drive a nice car? Probably.
Yeah.
Not if it's going to lead you into pride where you think, how good am I? I'm better than that person because I have a nice car.
That's right.
He's probably not going to help you, bless you to, do you know what I mean?
He doesn't want us to live in a...
He cares more about what's happening inside you than what's happening outside.
Yes.
And so if
I
our
agree.
souls are kind of, and this is the thing, right? Like we're never going to be in this life. We're not going to be made perfect.
Yep.
So we're always going to be sinners. We're always going to be flawed. We're always going to be
That's right.
making mistakes. So it's sort of,
That's right.
yet pursuing the things that the Lord has put before us
Yep.
is the important thing. And if
Yep.
that includes Him blessing you along the way,
Yep.
and if we can keep our own selfishness and pride in check,
Yeah.
then maybe we'll be a little bit better off than we would if we didn't. Because
That's right. Well, that's the theory.
another can of worms is that
Because when you
it's harder for a camel,
a rich man.
it's harder for a rich man to get in heaven than for a camel to go through the eye of a needle.
Yeah, that's right. Do you understand what the eye of the needle is?
Explain.
Have you heard the eye of the needle? Oh, okay. Well,
Explain it.
why am I
No,
explaining?
you
it
can
then?
explain it.
No, well, I just thought it was interesting, like, from one of the pastors that I listened to. It talks about the eye of the needle as, like, it's one of the small gates in the, so when the towns, when they come, commercial traders and everything come through, it's the main highway, basically, into the town. Usually has two big gates, and they have a smaller gate to let people in after hours, basically, for the night watch. It's actually, it's possible for a camel to get there, but it's very hard to actually walk through. So it's not, we take a literal presentation of this, which gives it a extravagant, probably, emphasis.
Well, that's what I was saying. We think that if you have money, then you're going to go to hell, right? Like that's been the mentality of a lot of Christians for quite a long time.
Yes, definitely.
A
over
poverty
the ages,
mentality.
When you look over the ages,
Yeah.
yes.
And especially because
that's associated. Poverty is associated with Christianity.
But also, it's the other side of the coin, because at the same time, one of the fundamental elements of the Christian faith that almost only faith, like that general faiths or religions have in common, is that sense of charity. Mm-hmm. And the idea of Christianity, as much as any other religion in the world, has led that charge. And so you had people who would own nothing and give everything out of service to the Lord and to others. So,
for sure.
So that's from a physical standpoint seemingly more holy or righteous to do that than it would be to amass wealth.
For sure.
So that's this sort of weird paradox that we've kind of, as a society, that we've kind of we go, oh, what do we do? And the Bible says it's harder for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to get to heaven.
Well, but when you look at that, like, obviously we've got to look at Scripture as a whole, not Scripture as a one set, this is a way.
And it's mostly like the parables that we've discussed even in this conversation, it's usually metaphoric, not literal. Yeah. So they grew up, so we
to
historically,
give an image or to give an understanding for people.
Historically, we were an agricultural society, which is why the Bible is littered with examples, agricultural examples of stories and things. Yeah, so we have to translate the principle of that to our life, not literally.
Yes, we don't need to go out and sow seed in the ground. But for me and you to spend advertising money to sow seed in the lives of people to potentially get clients, that's what we should do.
That's faith at work.
That's right.
Because we have to do something. You have to put seed in the ground for the Lord to water. Correct. Right? Correct. So it's not sitting by the phone like your bookkeeping business.
Yeah, that's right.
Waiting for the phone to ring.
Back in the day. Yeah, that's right.
In the day.
That doesn't.
We learn. We grow.
Right.
We move on from that.
That was a learning.
So what have we been talking about?
Everything. Well, it's got scattered around.
The other scripture I thought of was that we're not storing up earthly treasures. We're storing up treasures in heaven, right?
Well, we should be.
In a sense of our works, the works that we're doing.
Yep.
And the things that we're accomplishing in our lives.
For sure.
And so the pursuit of material things seems to be empty. I think that's one of the themes from our conversation.
I don't think that happiness drawn from wealth is not actually there. It's elusive. It's like a shadow or a mist or a smoke.
And I mean, we are sitting here as two relatively soon to be successful business people. Yeah. So you're going to be like, oh, of course they would say that because they're not they're not rich, and what you find from people who are rich or famous or have achieved all is you hear exactly that thing. So to say that money doesn't bring you happiness is true, because people who have money say that.
That's
there'll be a small percentage of people who say they are happy. They're probably lying to themselves.
Well, I think to have money, you can be happy and think.
Just like a rich man can get it.
But it's balanced. But it's a balanced view, like we take. I think Christianity is, like we've talked about, two polar opposites. You just described poverty in sense and the rich, right? But I think,
and how you can live your life
at extremes.
Yeah, but to the glory of God.
At either extreme.
Potentially.
But I like to think of Christianity as a balance, where we need to walk and bear our cross, but there needs to be a balance then in our approach. And that's why it's a narrow road. Because it's easy to go one way or to the other. It's easy to become judgmental or to become way too merciful. It's easy to become, way too rich and lose yourself in wealth and trusting riches, or to go down the route of a mindset of, I need to be poor because that's what God wants. But the scripture doesn't outlay or outline that we should be poor at all, because wealth follows people that walk in the wisdom of God, taught in Proverbs. It is prone to follow that. So if you're walking as someone that's walking out Proverbs,
I think to take a step back from that, to me, there's the first conversation that the first question we should be considering, or the question that people need to ponder, is it's not about what's the most high paying job you can get and go do that.
Yeah.
It's actually stepping back to the cliche conversation around purpose and calling.
Correct. And that should guide everything then.
That's gonna So it's not, I know, like I've known people who have just sat waiting for the call of God to come upon them on, like, Lord, what am I supposed to do with my life? And they've waited for that. Yeah. We've got to do stuff in the meantime.
That's right.
And typically
we have to do stuff.
Usually
we find
it kind of just comes across our path anyway when we're sort of doing something. Yeah. And opportunities will sort of open up. Yeah. And or you'll get fired.
Yeah, that's right.
And
I believe God opens and closes doors.
Why would we try and open or close those? It's probably just fighting the inevitable in some sense. But it's it's sort of like, what I'm trying to say is we could sit here and talk about, like I said, people who feel called to give everything away and live in a life of
that could be their
simplicity,
calling. Yeah, for sure.
And that's what they're just like. This is what the Lord has for me, and
that might be a missionary going overseas and going, look, I'm going to leave the wealth.
But at the same time, we need people who are building wealth to support
for sure.
the ministries of people who are working selflessly and serving to do those things. And I think
we just got to become generous people in our richness. Whether we're generous in time or generous in wealth, we've got to become generous people. Yeah.
I think that historically, that seems to be the hallmark of Christian charities changed the world in that sense.
Yeah, they have.
In that sense.
They've brought about a lot of education as well.
Education, health,
yep.
It's all pretty much stemmed from Christians who wanted to serve societies and make them better.
Yep. Definitely.
Pretty cool. We get to contribute to that.
That's a good discussion.
We get to contribute to that in our lives, in our businesses, in our families.
In our communities, our families, that's right.
It's tough though.
It's a day-to-day. It's a day-to-day. And he gives us the grace for the day. We've got to remember that. Every morning we don't need to try and rush ahead. For grace is for today, not for tomorrow. I've had time where I'm, in business, obviously in the first, we've hardly even talked about, I didn't even get to me even in uni.
Got to come back.
Anyway, I worked in uni for 8 years. In the IT department, managed all the contractual arrangements for the IT department. Yeah, managed the budget as it grew. Bigger and bigger software, helped negotiate large contracts, that type of thing. So that was good exposure, even to a lot of professional development in regards to psychologists and how to manage people better, how to build strategic vision for an organisation, and like overarching basically management principles and that type of thing, which has been good. But then, had an open door. Well, what seemed like an open door to walk into a real estate agency. So that's where I ended up being. But anyways, so I sold my wealth to get into it.
Yeah.
To try and support it. So that's an interesting thing. When you sell 2 houses to fund that, go from 3 houses to just your home. And then, it's been interesting. Like I've had times where I'm like, God, I don't know how we're going to make it to a month away. I'm like, I don't know how we're going to do it, God. But, and I think one of the things I've been taught is that the daily bread, like, we need to, like, the book of Job is about understanding there's a trust, an underlying trust we need to have with God that just goes to the depths of who we are, that it's just gives us this peace that no matter what comes, whatever situation, God's still there and the end is not yet. Like, God controls the end and controls when it will be. And the situation is just our walk along the path, whether it be through suffering, through illness, through loss, in any way. We need to have this underlying trust in God, and that even though it seems that, like in Job, he's suffering, even though he's, it talks of him as like he's the perfect man at the start of things. So he has no sin. That we all know that there's no man without sin except for Jesus. But it talks of him as a man that with no sin. I think it's just trying to highlight, because it is a fictional book. It actually starts, the first sentence is, if you translate it into English, it's actually in a land far, far away, in the land of Uz. That's the interpretation from Jewish scholars and kind of thing. So it starts off with like a fictional story, this man named Job. He was an actual real person, but they just bring about these discussions about why suffering happens to people that seem righteous. What does that happen? What does God allow that to happen? Like, what is the point of it? So they have discussions all around that, but the core thread is, at the end of the day, we just got to trust God, because He's managing the whole world. The whole universe is like under His sway, and He's working in everyone's heart and lives. He knows like all the creatures in the depths. And who we can find gold and silver in the mountains and dig, but who knows how to find wisdom? Wisdom is this potentially elusive thing that God breathes it, and if we're not willing to go, oh well, God, we believe in you, and I can trust you, and like walk in that. I think that needs to come back to our core, that trust in Him, and that's what I've been learning. In the desert, the Israelites walked around for 40 years. Every day, He supplied manna every day, not enough for tomorrow. He just wants you to take what you need for today, and that's what God's given me. Every day, I just take every day that's come. Don't worry about a month down the track that I've got to get to. Just take each day as it comes, keeps doing what I need to do, what I know to do, and He'll keep providing for me and my family.
That's it.
That's the walk, and we've just got to keep walking in it.
Everyone will have a God, right? As in,
everyone, yes.
Everyone will have, like, we've spoken from our own perspective of faith.
Yeah, for sure.
And we've spoken of a type of wisdom, which we would consider, the wisdom of God or biblical wisdom that can be found there. Yeah. When everyone is going to have their own version of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Whether it's their own wisdom or the pursuit of their own
knowledge
or the knowledge of some other person or some other God or some other religion or some other outworking of that. So when people, I guess, talk about the fact that they're, say, not religious or don't believe in God, their God will be something. It'll be politics, or it'll be their sports club, or it'll be their sports team, or it'll be that, like, they'll have something that is their religion and their
what's
God.
Their belief mechanism that comes back to, and what's their world perception come back to? Is it coming back to a biblical view or a another
It's just usually a bit more abstract.
thing. Yeah, that's right.
We've got a
Something that's
framework.
been influenced over.
We've got a framework that we sort of, a platform that we speak from, or a lens we look through.
Yeah.
Most people could easily listen to this conversation and think, oh, that's, oh, whatever, that's that.
Whatever, that's
But they'll have their own version of it.
For sure.
So if you ask someone even of morality,
Yep.
it's a really interesting way to catch people out a little bit, but
Not
not catch people out, but it's sort of, if people do you believe in right and wrong?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, who decides that? Oh, well, we decide it. We know within ourselves what's right and wrong. And it's the Nazis were okay to do what they did then to the Jews because they thought it was the right thing. Oh, well, hang on a second. It's like, well, then where does our moral law come from? Like, if it can't come from ourselves, it has to come from outside of that. So when you and I sit here and talk about a law of, a moral law and a foundation of faith around a belief in certain things, basically being the Bible, everyone will have their own version of that they get from somewhere. Ours is just articulated in a certain way.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think it's just a good premise. It's just a good base to remember that for people.
Yeah.
And if they have questions, they should read the Bible.
Well, there's a lot in there.
There's a lot in there.
Take you a long time to try and master that. But yeah, it's interesting.
Thank you for your insights. It's pretty cool. I didn't even get to talk to you about business or family, which is another huge topic.
Huge aspect.
That you have a lot of good things to say about. But I'm grateful we got to talk about some of those elements of money, I guess. Money and how do we think about prosperity and generosity.
And purpose in life. Like what is understanding what the calling is, and because that should underlie everything we do in life. And if you don't have one, that's where anyone's going to feel lost and that's where suicide, depression, all that type of thing will have a big factor. And identity rolls out of that.
Doing things for others is good for us.
Yeah, it's part of it.
Cool.
The world's bigger than you.
Are you going to come back for another episode? You're going to come back for another episode?
For sure.
Great.
Definitely. It's been a great experience.
Cool. We'll let you get to your appointment.